Good morning. Welcome to When Women Speak, Voices from Whisper, Whisper, Shout. I am your host, Amira Shabazz Bilal, poet, visual storyteller, and founder of When Women Speak, a platform where women's voices rise with power, tenderness, and truth. Today, I am honored to sit with one of the phenomenal women contributors to our newest
Mm.
anthology, Whisper, Whisper, Shout. It's a collection of raw, resilient, and radiant poetry from women across the globe. Let's welcome to our stage Margaret Sáraco, whose work lives boldly on these pages. Welcome, Margaret. How are you?
I'm well, thank you. It's great to be here and being part of this anthology. Very powerful.
It is a beautiful thing to actually meet you because one of the things that people don't realize is that When Women Speak is an international group of poets, and we're from all over the world, and we don't
Mhm.
necessarily know each other, and we don't necessarily live in the same region of the world. So this is like a face to face for the first time for the both of us, although we've seen each other in pictures and that sort of thing. But When Women Speaks, Whisper, Whisper, Shout anthology is made up of 80 women poets, which you are one of. The
Mhm.
cover is beautiful. I don't know if you've gone out to Amazon to take a look at it, um, but I need to give credit to the artists. I'm a photographer, right? I'm a visual storyteller as well as a performance poet. And I was at an art gallery and I saw this stunning, stunning sculpture um, done by an artist, Linda Mickens. Linda Mickens, after I took the photography of her work, was gracious enough to allow me to use my photographs to grace the cover of Whisper, Whisper, Shout. So if anybody is wondering, well, where did she get that fabulous image from? It was actually from another woman's voice
Mm.
via her hands. She's a sculptor, and it's beautifully
Mm.
done. Right. So that I gave credit
Beautiful.
to Miss
Mm.
Mickens in this episode.
Okay.
Ladies and gentlemen, Margaret Sáraco is the author of If There Is No Wind and Even the Dog Was Quiet. Was a semifinalist in the Laura Boss contest, a finalist in the Islands Book Awards, awarded first prize in Moving Words 2024, and received multiple recognitions in the Ginsberg Poetry Contest. Again, welcome, Margaret. So, Margaret,
You.
tell me, how does it feel to be a part of this anthology?
I've seen the first anthology that came through, and I've been following your group for a while, and just I really am very excited about it. I'm an activist at heart. That's my where I live. And so to combine poetry and activism, which really is when you say whisper, whisper, shout, that is an active voice. So I'm very excited to be a part of this and to read everyone's work.
Beautiful. And I actually read your poem. Well, I read all the poems in the book, but I read yours several times.
Mm.
And I said, yeah, this is a fiery woman here. And she's got some cases she wants to stand by. She wants to
Mm.
vocally give
Mm.
her support to certain things that are happening in our world. So yes, I really did read that poem several times
Mm.
this morning before we met. Um,
Mm.
I'd like for you to share that poem with our audience. Could you?
Sure. It's called We Are Being Hunted. I spend the nights in unrest, unable to communicate, in nocturnal throes that consume each moment. I am hunted through forests by politicians with guns, taking aim and missing just by a hair. I run on grass made of nails as my punishment for speaking truth to power, each nickel-plated spike piercing my skin. But when I stop, my pock-marked feet feel no pain until I look, cradle them, and cry. In my dreams, I live in shrinking homes that lose their walls and frigid temperatures, with no clothes or blankets to warm my naked body. Worse, I am unable to protect all those around me, my children, my partner, my students, my friends, my neighbors, strangers who need my help. We are all being hunted. Finally, and at last, I try and survive the night, climbing out of sinkholes while stalagmite crystals snap above my head, looking for a single path out of this dizzying labyrinth.
What what truths were you whispering in this poem? Which truths were you shouting in this poems? And what truths were echoing throughout the verses, the stanzas in this poem?
The poem is a dream, really. It's the nightmares that I have a lot of nightmares. So the voices that are inside my head in the day are sometimes come out at night. But it's a very visceral understanding in the dream space. There's all kinds of human rights issues that are coming up for me, that, all of the, well, we could talk just about what's happening in the moment, as the poem was written a while ago, and yet it's constantly coming back. Um, Separating families, interfering with children's education, shuttering the libraries, attempting to define who we are, reproductive rights, which was probably the first impetus of this poem, the first thrust of it. Um, Deporting people who disagree, trying to remove us from history. All of this stuff is what's going through underlying the poem. And yet the shout is the poem. The shout is, I got to put this forward, and I can't be afraid to say anything, which I'm usually not. But it's getting harder to shout. It just is. That's the space we're living in now, and that's the time you have to step forward even more.
I love your response to that particular question, and lots of it resonates with me in terms of how I live my life and how I like to see other human beings be able to live their lives. And I struggle with, what have I sat down for? I struggle with,
Mm.
what have I become silent for? And then the last part of that is, what have I spoken out, which is the weakest of what anyone could do in terms of, well, it's not the weakest, it's the second weakest. It's like you can either change it with your hand, you can change it with your mouth, or you can hold it in your heart as a hateful thing that you'd want eradicated from human existence.
Mm.
And there's so
Mm.
many, so many, so many things. I'm feeling a certain way right now because I didn't put any type of activist poems from myself in this volume.
Mm. Mm.
In my original works in my own anthology, I have, that's the kind of poet I am. So now just this living with these words, I'm like, hey, I should have shouted and not whispered and let what I have on my
Mm.
tongue echo, because we all know, and I know it's cliche to say that the weapon of the poet, um, the sword of the poets are our words, because this is how we change things. This is how we change society. We don't
Mhm.
ever keep quiet about things that are wrong. And we don't necessarily always have to agree on whatever that is, but we definitely don't need to be keeping quiet about things that are grossly, grossly wrong anywhere, no matter who it may be, right?
I mean,
Right?
if I could respond for a moment, though, that just putting your work in the anthology is speaking, it's standing up, it's being present. I mean, I think that it's really important that we acknowledge that and honor each other. And there's also, I've had two of my children got married within the last 2 years. I just became a grandparent. There are these moments of actual pure joy. And I've been telling people who are having trouble moving through this time period we're all living through, is that when joy is in front of you, you've got to embrace it, because otherwise it's very hard to move through and be that activist and to be able to get down and grounded into the fight that we're all that well, I will say that I'm experiencing in the moment. So this some of the work that I've read in this just brings pure joy, and that is healing and important. So that's what I would offer to you, Amira. Your poetry is just amazing.
I need that.
I would
I need that
say
every day of my life, because as an artist, whether it be my visual arts or my performance arts, you have that imposter syndrome. And,
oh
this is
sure.
why. This is why I created the platform, believe it or not, because I wanted women not to feel so um, scared to speak out. This is what women speak is all about. Um, I just want to ask one thing about this poem
Sure.
before we move to another question. Do you see this poem as a whisper, a shout, or an echo? Did I ask that already? Because it seems
You did,
familiar to
you did. And I think, part of it is that I probably didn't answer it, a whisper or a shout. I think it's a shout.
yeah.
I do think it's a shout. I think it is, and I think it's a shout to say, if you're feeling alone in this, you're not. There
Sure.
are many of us that are feeling this, although we might not wear it all the time. And certainly at night, it's always the most difficult time for me. So I think it's a shout.
It's a shout that if you read it for the first time, it's kind of soft. It's kind of,
Mm.
but then when it hits in your heart, it just bangs around and it is a shout. It's a very loud thing. So it's very well crafted, very beautifully written, and the message does come forth in what you were trying to convey here. Is this poem selected for the anthology because of the title, Whisper, Whisper, Shout, or did you just want to share it with the world?
No, no, this was very specific. When I saw I know your work, I know your work particularly. I knew of the other anthology, and so when I saw that, there's certain venues you can really push your poetry that's got an edge to it, and so this was definitely an edge. And while it was written, I can't remember. I think I wrote it. I might have written it after the Dodd decision, which wasn't too long ago. But I felt very strongly about it, and I wanted to place it somewhere where it would really get the right amount of airspace and um, people would really be able to take it in. I think in this anthology, it's the perfect
Perfect. It
placement for
really
that.
is. I'm going to just share a poem that I did put in here, and I
Mm,
want to see if I can get your reflection or your response to it. To me, it's a whisper, and it
mm,
has some symbols in it or some symbolic language in
mm,
it, and I just want to know what your reaction is to it, whether or not what I'm trying to convey comes across, and even if it doesn't, what do you get from it? So the
mm,
title of this poem is on page 66 of the anthology Whisper, Whisper, Shout. It's called A Group of Crows. It's called A Murder.
mm,
A group of crows is called a murder. A group of women in black called Purda. Like
mm.
crows in the shadows, silent, strong, misunderstood. A murder of strength unseen. Say, Amin. The looks, the stares, the fear. There's no grace in the swoop of a crow, wings, blanket skies, and rooftops. They fly low. The horse grating coos and caws, rattles and clicks, eyes be keen. The Zaragata between the Bismillah and Amin, and out loud on purpose on Eid. How is a crow like a woman in black, you ask? Both dark, both mysterious, a somber presence, but with glee inside within the blackness they both hide. Don't fear what you don't know, but what is there to know about a crow?
Mm.
The image of a woman in black in your mind is called a murder poem.
Wow.
What do you think?
Wow. First of all, I love how you break the poem with questions. It invites me back in a different way than I when I start out with the crows and the women in black. I'm also fascinated by crows. They're vastly intelligent. They memorize movements. They're just I've written a lot about crows, so I'm really excited that you have found this. And I'm still, oh, I would love to read it many, many times, which I will when I get the anthology. But I love this just juxtaposition of the women in black and the murder. Um, yeah,
Yeah, it's
I
a
don't know. I think that,
heavy.
and I love your questions. I love the questions.
It's heavy. It has so many symbolic suggestions, like who are these women in black? And the only thing that you really get to really connect with is the fact that I say they're wearing purdah. And are you familiar with what purdah is?
I don't. And there were several words I didn't know, but that was one of them.
And that's what we do when we read. If we don't, we look things up. But a
Look it
purdah
up.
is a Muslim woman who covers everything except for her eyes.
Ah,
Yes.
okay, got it.
And they're dressed totally in black.
That's important. Mm-hmm.
That's totally in black. Not like what
Mm-hmm.
you see from Afghanistan with the blue and the cultural connections with other countries, but a woman in
I
purple
understand.
with total black. And so like if you see
Mm,
them in your neighborhood or in another neighborhood in the United States, they're kind of out of place, but you know that they're Muslim and you know that they're
mm,
in most people's mind, they're this foreign thing and they look weird and what
mm,
are they
mm,
covering their whole body and including their face for? What do I think about them? That's pure craziness. Why would a woman want to do that?
mm,
So these are some of the things
mm-hmm,
I know people are thinking, but no one asks.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
We're not that kind of people. And like I know,
mm-hmm.
Margaret, I know you research things, but not everybody does that. So
Right, right, right,
yeah,
right, right. That's interesting. And there was another word you used. It started with a Z, I think, a Z sound.
Sáraco, that's the that they, the tongue clicking. I can't even do it. It's
Oh, yeah, 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 yeah.
yeah, they do it at weddings, they do it at celebrations, they do it to
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
just bring the emotion up, right? And
Yeah, yeah,
so
yeah, yeah, yeah.
when we have what we
Okay,
call
so there's something fascinating about this that when children are born, they are able to make any sound in the world, and then whatever they hear, they mimic, and whatever they don't hear, they lose. So we're all born with the ability to make all of these sounds, which I always thought was fascinating. So when you said that, you said, I can't do it right now, right? Because it's very specific. We were actually at one point able to do all of that, but whatever our culture we're born into is the one that we take into our mouths,
that
really. Isn't that
is
fascinating?
amazing. I'm going to start
It's amazing.
speaking many languages into my grandson here right now, so
That's it. That's it. Yeah,
he'll get
absolutely.
it.
You
Yeah.
should. Yeah. Yeah.
Activist poem, like just warning people, don't be so judgmental. And on the
Mm,
other
mm,
side of it, the women that tend to show their modesty this way, they're sizing up things too outside of that cloak still. And you
right.
just open the door to what do crows do? Wow. Why
It was it's just a
that poem?
it's a brilliant metaphor you're using. I just love it. I just love it. Because it's also crows are I don't often see them alone. I see them in groupings,
You're
right?
right. You're
There's
right.
one, then there's another, then there's another.
You're right.
Sometimes they're swooping down over you there, and and we don't necessarily understand them, but
Strength.
we exist together, right?
Yeah.
I
Why
guess
would
so.
I pick you to share that particular? See,
I don't know. It's
out
great.
here, it's out here. Whisper, shout, the anthology from When Women Speak, anthology number 2. Margaret, I know that you didn't receive your hard copy yet, but I know that you had privy to some of the poems just because you're a part of this and, we like to share things. Did you have any poem that you read or you wanted to read for us, share in this platform?
Yes, as a matter of fact, one of the poems that you shared with me is by someone I know.
Oh,
Her name is Anita Nehal. I was participating in a talk about a book, and she was the moderator. She's really lovely.
yes.
So I thought, and hers was about a dream, and I thought, oh my goodness, we have a similar space here. So I will attempt to read it with all of the pronunciations I have. Diaspora Obituary Dream by Anita Nehal. I was shaken out, 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 like indisposed pepper and salt from shakers, shake, 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 and falling, fall, 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 solidly falling like a bucket full of water telling tales on slippery floors of a single immigrant Indian mom running here and there, everywhere on tiptoes, gliding, naked feet, cold as if I were in a meat freezer or suspended on nano maglevs, bearing my cross, reflecting, pondering, feeling, feeling, pondering, reflecting, a bit breathless, a bit urgent, I was thinking, I'll get no tombstone, or the words on it will not be mine, or my last wishes will not be read, or the cemetery would be overgrown, or the weeds would be alive and mocking, or they won't know I am a Hindu. I need a crematorium and some of my ashes strewn in River Ganges. I keep asking my son from one mourner to another, where is he? Where is he? He knows what's to be done. He knows. They tell me to calm down, calm down, calm down, sit in the trenches, or keep standing, or do shavasana, or dance, do unto my heart's content, as if that was my last day on earth. Both the adopted stars and stripes and the native tricolor give a fly past, and I see my son rushing to embrace me, crying not to leave him. I hear church bells and Vedic chants and smell of camphor over my head as my son holds my hand in his right, an urn adorned with Christmas lights, and Ganesha's motifs in his left. He leads me away, his and my tears forming countless smudged, though some palatable roads in from between at New Delhi and America.
Um, Anita's voice is powerful, strong. For me, you selecting that piece, I love Anita, by the way. It has a reflection of what when women speak really is, which is a collection of varied voices, varied ethnicities, varied cultures, varied nationalities. It just crosses so many planes. What it is women. And that's the only criterion to be in when women speak is that you be a woman. Um, I was just moved by her utterance of her Hindu perspective.
Mm.
And a couple of things caught
Mm-hmm.
my ear, like, in her Hindu religion or culture background. She also had some American ideas and concepts in that poem, The Christmas Tree. But overall, she had that feeling of which transcends everything, being a woman and a mother. That's
Mm-hmm.
really cool in that poem. Um, can you share why you selected to read that particular poem?
Attached to, and I've just read a handful so far. So it was difficult. Even though I knew Anita, I thought it's just the right one for today, and I think it is. I loved her repetitiveness, and in dream states, because we were both writing about dreams. Um, there's something about that, fall, fall, fall. You can feel yourself not like just not grounded at all to the earth, and just trying to figure out where you are in this space. And you mentioned her son and her Hindu background. And there's something about that last line, in from between at New Delhi and America. It's like living in a crossroads. There was a writer, her name is Gloria Anzaldúa. I think she's passed on at this point, but she wrote a book called Borderlands years ago, and it was about living on the border. She was Mexican, but not in Mexico. She was considered not Mexican.
Mm,
She was in America. She was considered not American, and
mm-hmm,
she always talked about living on the border, living on literally in that space.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And so when I read this, that came back. I love this other woman's work for many years. It's been held in my heart about really understanding how difficult it is and to live in between spaces. And this poem touches on that a lot. And you're right, she writes about Christmas lights and Ganesha's motifs. It's
Mm-hmm,
like,
mm-hmm.
wow, where am I? And then, it's an obituary. She's not here. She's not there. She's in between. And it's her son she's looking for to
Wow.
to pull it together. So I just thought that was
Margaret,
just
do you prefer reading poetry or listening to poetry?
yes, both.
I was just feeling that I read Anita's poem. Yeah, I've read everybody's poem. But when you
Right.
read it out loud, it did something different. So I'm suggesting that anybody that picks up the volume or the manuscript or the book, Whisper, Whisper, Shout, that they do the same thing. They read it and then they
Mm.
silently read it and then they read it out loud at least one or two pieces. So as I
Right.
travel through whatever venue I'm at, I'm going to be selecting somebody's poem out of this book to read for the audience because that just opened up a whole nother world for me when you read this piece and it wasn't yours. And no one could
Right.
tell that
Right. Yeah,
you,
and I think that's also the name of the community is When Women
yes,
Speak,
ma'am.
which is also one of the things that I really do believe that poetry should be. Um, it is an art form that needs to be spoken
Yeah.
as well. But I love reading it. I love listening to it. I love being in poetry communities. I love sharing. Oh, I love all of that. It's just what makes it so alive.
Like to welcome you because you are now part of the When Women Speak
Oh,
community
thank
family.
you.
When you share your work, you can also say that this is an organization. It's free. It's
Mhm.
open to anybody, and we are international. So we do have poets from varied parts of the world, and I'm very proud of that. And said that, I want to
Um,
know if your poem was the only piece of your work someone ever read, what do you hope they would carry with them?
I hope they would look for kindred spirits and stand together. I hope that they will feel free to speak, and that's a phrase that's always with me anyway. So I think that to speak out, I think I've been traveling as a feminist for decades in different incarnations, and I've learned that I can be brave even though I'm afraid. And I'm hoping that people will take that. Um, People will often say, you know, courage is doing it afraid. It really is just very powerful. Um, and there's no alternative when you need to speak up. You need to speak up and stand for yourself or for others. Otherwise, we're just going to be continue to be chased.
I believe that. And Margaret, that was very, very powerful. Your response to that question meant everything to me at this moment. And I'm glad that it's recorded so that others can hear it as well and take from it what they need to take from it. And in conclusion and ending this segment of the podcast for Whisper, Whisper, Shout, the anthology, um, I'd like to know, or I'd like for you to complete this sentence for me. When women speak,
When women speak, our activism is contagious and spreads across the universe.
perfect, because you know yours truly is going to make a found poem out of all of these complete.
Oh, that would be so fun. Absolutely. Go for it.
Well, Margaret, thank you again for visiting our stage and for being a part of When Women Speak. And I hope that you continue to contribute, join us on our escapades, come to our workshops, our retreats.
Mm.
Whatever it takes. We're free and open. The group meets on Facebook. You get all our news from
Oh,
there.
great.
Sorry if
Oh,
the
that's
people are
good.
not on Facebook, but that's the only platform I can do it for free. So hey,
That's
it is
good.
it is.
Works.
So this broadcast will be shared on the When Women Speak podcast show, and I will give you that information at a later date. But once again, thank you, Margaret, Sáraco, and thank everyone out there for listening to this podcast session of Whisper, Whisper, Shout from the When Women Speak. And guess what? I'm keeping that in there from the When Women from the When Women Speak platform. Thank you,
Oh,
and
thank you. Thank you.